The challenges faced in addiction recovery and prevention. We talked today with people from a local nonprofit working to eliminate the disease of addiction through a variety of treatment programs geared towards what each individual needs. Let's go on the record.
From WPBF 25, this is On the Record with Todd McDermott.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us today. A world free of addiction. That's the goal of Hanley Foundation, a treatment and recovery nonprofit. It is clearly a significant challenge. Join me now to explain how the organization is working to accomplish that. It's Alli Jimenez, the Vice President of Program Development for Hanley Foundation. First of all, when we talk about addiction and recovery, there aren't necessarily just linear solutions. There isn't a master plan for every patient that's the same, right?
There's absolutely not. It has to be taken in such an individualized approach when you're working with people that are struggling with substance use disorders. There is no one-size-fits-all method. Even with the treatment that we do, it is all individualized based on that person's needs.
So tell me how Hanley Foundation and how your people go about the process of putting together that individualized program for someone.
So every person that enters treatment has their own intake assessment that's completed, and this will really encompass all of their history, their physical, everything as far as childhood trauma, their social determinants of health, understanding where they're lacking, where they need support, and then based on that, we're able to tailor an individualized treatment plan for them.
Do you feel doing that may be unique among a certain group of recovery and treatment centers, that there are centers that are more regimented in how they will treat somebody?
Most treatment centers, if not all, should have or should follow the ASAM guidelines, which is the American Society of Addiction Medicine. And so every treatment center should be following the gold standard of assessments for people in the intake.
All right, now the foundation launched this new program. It's geared towards some individualized groups, and I'm sure it's very specific to those groups. Let's talk about the first one is addressing the needs of veterans and first responders dealing with addiction.
They have such unique experiences because they constantly are exposed to trauma on a repeat basis, right? So they might have 15, 20, 30 calls a day where they're seeing things that none of us of the general population would be able to process. So for them, they actually have to respond to a call where they see a horrific thing and then go back to work right afterwards and act like nothing's happened. So we wanted to develop a program that was comprehensive in nature, that it would treat the unique trauma that they experience, and also that brotherhood and sisterhood that career path has within it. So instead of it being a treatment program that they're mixed in with everybody else, they would really have tailored treatment tracks that would focus on their unique work trauma, their unique experiences.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people look at the work of first responders, military veterans, those who've seen combat, and believe that, well, they developed a tough skin and you know, they have a thick skin and they can just deal with this. But it's human nature that at some point you can break down, you may self-medicate, and this leads to addiction.
Absolutely. We are humans. We're not machines. So even if we develop thick skin, what happens when you ignore trauma for so long, your brain can no longer ignore it. It can actually rewire your brain's chemistry. And that is what leads to this yearning to numb the psychological pain that they're experiencing.
Now, I also want to talk about the plan to reach the children of people struggling with addiction. This is a very specific group of people that we know it can actually lead to their own addictions, but also a lot of emotional impact on the children of addicts.
Absolutely. When children experience addiction, when their parent has a substance use disorder, a lot of times they end up blaming themselves, because they feel that they're doing something wrong, that maybe they're causing this, that they're stressing their mommy or daddy out. And what happens is a lot of times the kids are not spoken to about this. There are programs for older teenagers, but for young children, there weren't any programs locally. So we actually partnered with the National Association for Children of Addiction and developed a 3-day children's program for children ages 7 to 12 that would really focus on their unique experiences having lived with a loved one with substance use disorder.
And clearly, helping those children while they're children can hopefully avoid a lot of issues in adulthood when otherwise it isn't dealt with, and now they're an adult and they have all these problems of their own that come from what happened during their childhood.
Absolutely, and the goal is to break the generational cycles of substance use disorders and trauma through prevention, through education, through advocacy, and just having the difficult conversations with people, acknowledging this is a real problem, so what can we do collectively as a society to change it?
I want to get to two other things if we can in the last minute and a half or so, and that is this addiction treatment program for pregnant women or women who have just given birth, a very specific group with specific challenges.
Perinatal women with substance use disorders, they have very unique challenges because they are highly stigmatized. It's expected that if a woman has a substance use disorder and she's pregnant, she should automatically just stop using substances. Chemically in the brain, that's not possible. It's not possible when someone is not pregnant, and so when they are pregnant, the withdrawal symptoms that they would experience could not only harm them, but it could also harm the fetus. So what we always try to do is have the conversations with the community members and educating them on why it's so important to not judge pregnant women or new parents on having a substance use disorder, but we really like to use the term support, not stigma, because the more that we can support these women through individualized care and also teach them parenting workshops, identifying where in their family system did this addiction start, what traumas have they experienced, how can we together work through those traumas to then break that generational cycle before it starts with their own children.
All right, and we are out of time for this segment. Alli Jimenez, President of Program Development at Hanley Foundation. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for going on the record.
Thanks.
We have much more to get to this morning. Next, how to break the cycle of addiction by starting with our younger generation.
You're watching On the Record on WPBF 25.
Thanks for staying with us. We continue our conversation now on addiction recovery and prevention. A big part of breaking the cycle of addiction means creating child-family programs. Joining me now, Dr. John Dyben, Chief of Research and Innovation at Hanley Foundation. Now, Doctor, we just spoke about the new family children program that Hanley Foundation has. Take me back to what inspired it in its creation. What sparked this?
You know, it can't be talked about without talking about the man Jerry Moe. Jerry Moe is a man, he's a therapist who has been doing programs like this for nearly 40 years. He currently does work with Sesame Street and helps them create characters that can talk about dealing with addiction. And the reality is that we have known for years and years that addiction is a disease, like all other chronic diseases, that affects everybody in the family. And so there's a lot of treatment available for individuals with the disease. There's even a lot of treatment available for adult family members. But the kids, the young kids, the 7 to 12-year-olds, they are the first to be impacted by addiction, and they are the last to get any help, if they get any help at all. So this was born out of a need to help a population that is innocent and that is in desperate need of help.
And there is a mystery involved in this, too, because kids that age may not share much about how they're feeling, how they're being impacted. So how do you draw that out? How do you help them cope?
You know, when we do a 3-day family program for kids that focuses on these kids, there's 3 main things that we want to do. One is we want to give them a language to understand what's happening. We help them to understand what addiction is from a developmentally appropriate perspective, but a lot of adults can't talk about or really understand what addiction is. So giving kids the language, it helps them move past this tendency to blame themselves. But the second thing is that when there's addiction in a family, that tends to be a closed family system. And so kids even more feel like they can't talk, they can't feel, they can't trust. And so that second part is creating an environment where kids have opportunities through healthy engagement with therapeutic adults, through play and being allowed to be kids, and also with being with other kids who are going through the same thing. They begin to, we call it opening the doors. And so that's one of the major major legs of the program is giving kids the opportunity to talk about their experience, their stories, their feelings, and their thoughts, and not only to each other, but eventually to the safe adults in their lives.
Now, this is a 3-day program. Can you see a transformation? Can you see this start to break through in just 3 days?
Wildly. There are those that have been doing this kind of program. We've all got a million stories, but even recently, a lot of times the kids will come and they might be 8, 9, 10, but they are far, far, far more grown up than their age because they've had to be. And we recently had a girl who came to the program, flew in from a different state, and you could see that, I'm adult and responsible and such, even though I'm 10 years old. And through the program, there was a point where I saw a shift. And so this kid who was carrying the weight of the world on herself changed into a 10-year-old girl right in front of my eyes. And there are so many stories of that. The adults that are involved and people that see this program, so often adults will say, oh my gosh, had that been there for me, had I had that opportunity, that would have been a life changer for me.
Can you give us an example of an activity that a child would go through that helps them break through during that 3-day period? Something that they do? What?
Absolutely. So everything is intentional. And one of the things that we do is we know that these kids have had a lot of broken promises. That's what happens when addiction is in a family. And so we do things that intentionally build the trust. So when there's I hope if anybody, kids are watching, don't watch this because we don't want to give it away.
Sure.
But we make a promise to the kids on day one that if they can accomplish something in a silly game, that the next day they can push me into the pool with all my clothes on. And it seems like a silly thing, and it is. But even like that reaction, we laugh, they laugh. But what happens is, once we make that promise, no matter what's going to happen, we're keeping that promise. And so throughout the next 24 and 30 hours, the kids begin to have opportunities. We never ask kids to trust us. We ask kids to see that we're being trustworthy. And so eventually, whoever is, the head person in this program, the kids get to push that person in the pool. And there is an amazing... That's where that transformation was for that.
That really creates trust. That really does. And you can't tell a child, trust me.
Of course not.
They've heard that
1,000 times.
Right. But you did develop the trust that way. Somebody out there hears about this today who's watching. What do they do to try to get their child enrolled with the Hanley Foundation?
Best thing is to go to hanleyfoundation.org. There is a page that explains this. It gives a lot of information. People can click on a link and they can sign a kid up for this. They can also call. But what's really important to know is that this is a fully funded program. That means that nobody has to, parents or caregivers don't have to pay for their kids to be part of this program. And so, I can't say how much that means to me personally. It's, donors have fully funded the program, and the person doesn't have to have anything to do with Hanley Center. So if there's anybody in this community that knows a child 7 to 12 who's been impacted by addiction, they can get that kid signed up and they can access this program without paying a penny.
I have to let you go. The website they should go to?
hanleyfoundation.org.
All right. Dr. John Dyben, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is fascinating. Still ahead this morning, more about the help available for military veterans, people on active duty, and those first responders. The addiction treatment program is being offered to those who serve. And On the Record continues. Welcome back. I'm joined now by two guests, as you can see, to continue this discussion on addiction treatment and recovery. We welcome Steve Campana, but we really welcome his therapy dog, Mac, too. Steve, you're okay, but we're pretty happy to have Mac with us. I know you're part of Hanley Foundation's Patriots program. Can you explain first what that is?
So our Patriots suffer a unique types of trauma. They've been exposed to things that other people really shouldn't ever have to see.
And these are military veterans and first responders?
Yes, sir. All branches of the military service, police, fire, EMS, even ER nurses and doctors as well. They experience unique traumas that the general population doesn't have. So Hanley has catered to that population and to all patients. They curtail their treatment to the problems that they have.
And some of those problems are very unique. Can you explain perhaps one challenge faced by somebody in the program that might be different than someone who hasn't gone through a military background or police background?
Yeah, PTSD is something that we suffer from quite a bit, as well as we have a very high rate of suicide. Suicidal ideations are something that our population sees at a much higher rate than the regular population. And Hanley takes the treatment programs that we've been using for 40 years and does a treatment plan for each individual patient. It's not a one-size-fits-all at Hanley. So our patriots get the treatment that they need, and there's many different treatment modalities, from EMDR, CBT, DBT, experiential treatment. It's really treating the mind, the body, and the spirit holistically, as well as medically and through therapy.
What brought you to the Hanley Foundation?
I've been a first responder since I was 21 years old. I actually started as a cadet at the age of 14. And my entire career I suffered and battled with addiction, with alcohol and drugs. And in 2017, I found myself on the doorstep of the Hanley Center. It was the last house on the block for me. And I never left. I graduated the program. I got to go back to the fire department and complete my service the next 3 years, retire with dignity, and I never really left the Hanley Center. I was volunteering there quite a bit. And in retirement, something that we suffer from is a lack of purpose. And decided to just make a phone call to a friend who was working there. And yeah, 2 days later, I was hired. I started working on the very unit that I stayed in, working with the men in the Center for Men's Recovery.
That's got to be rewarding for you.
It is. It is. You know, it's part of a 12-step program of recovery is to give back. And even though I was working at Hanley, I still felt like I was giving back. And when the Hanley Foundation reacquired the Hanley Center, our CEO, Dr. Rachel Dosical, is a visionary, and she wants a program, a separate building, just for our patriots, and a true freestanding and running program on its own.
Let's talk about MAC now, how you got together with MAC and what MAC does for you and what you do for MAC.
So thanks for asking that, by the way. I suffer from PTSD, and one of the symptoms that I have is insomnia. And one night at 3 a.m., I'm down the rabbit hole looking at holistic things to help with insomnia, and I came up on therapy dogs, and I sent an email, a one-line email to the CEO. Have you ever thought of a therapy dog for the Hanley Foundation? And at 5:30 in the morning, she responded, I love that. And that's her tagline for go get it. I partnered with a friend of mine who's retired from Orange County Fire Rescue, Amy Morton, who works for Canine Companions. She got me in touch with the right organization for Hanley, which was Paws and Stripes through the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. And the staff out there got MAC donated from a private rescue organization, a firefighter out of Broward County, rescued MAC, brought him to Paws and Stripes, and from the minute they got him there, they knew that he was the dog for me. The second that I got to meet Mac, he ran over and jumped into my arms, and it's been a match made in heaven ever since.
Mac is great. I'm just about out of time. I want to ask one more question if I can. Is financial assistance, is it there for people who want to take part in this?
Absolutely. So Hanley works with most all major insurance companies. We also have lifesaver grants for those that don't. And that's done on an individual basis through an application. And yes, we definitely help our service members and our first responders that are in need.
All right, Steve Campana and Mac, who's bored, thank you so much for sharing the story.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. On the Record, we'll be right back.